Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on BBA in Finance, and in today's video we will be learning about two topics, microeconomics and macroeconomics, as well as the difference between them, right? So before I start off with the topic, I wanted to clarify two basic concepts, which were one of them being alternative use of resources and the other being scarcity of resources. So yeah, if you look at the broad definition of both these topics or concepts, you will be thinking that these are very similar, but that is not the case actually. They are very different. So let's come to what they mean, right? So, alternative use of resources basically means that let's say you have 1000 rupees, right? And let's say you want to buy either a watch which costs you 1000, or you want to buy a pen which costs you 1000. Now you only have 1000 rupees, right? So you can't buy both. You cannot buy both, right? You have to buy either one of them, either a watch or a pen, right? So that is what alternative use of resources means, that this 1000 rupees can be used not just for buying a watch but can also be used for buying a pen, right? It can be used for buying, let's say, a notebook, anything, right? Anything which you want, it can be used for, right? So let's take another example. You can use land to grow, let's say, wheat, or you can use that same land to create a house. Now it's up to you with what you want to do, right? But that is basically what it means, the alternative use of resources. Alright. Now let's come to the second concept, which was scarcity of resources. That basically means, a scarcity of resources basically means that when you are in shortage of something, that is scarcity, right? So if there's a shortage of something, that means it is scarce. So if you remember our previous example, we only had 1000 rupees, right? And let's say we wanted to buy a watch which was worth 1100. We don't have enough money to buy that, right? But our demand is of 1100 rupees, right? So that we would here say that our resources are scarce. So let's take another example. Let's say you want to buy 10 pens, and you go to a shop and there are only 9 pens, right? They are not, the supply is only of 9 pens, but you want 10 pens, right? So what that basically means that there is scarcity of pen in that particular shop, right? So hope you understand both of these topics. Now why I wanted to clarify these concepts was that there is a concept called economic problems, and these economic problems arise because of scarcity of resources as well as alternative use of resources. Right? We will be learning about these economic problems in the next chapter, but I just wanted to give a brief about why we have to clarify these concepts. Alright, now let's come to what we have to study in this lesson, which is the microeconomics as well as macroeconomics and the difference between them, right? So let's come to microeconomics. What does microeconomics mean? So microeconomics basically means when you do a study of economic activities in let's say in a individual level, on an individual's level, right? So let's say you are looking at yourself, right? You are only one person in the whole let's say uh, economy, right? And we are looking at you, just you as a person, right? So how much you spend, how much you save, etc. So when we are looking at you, only you, or only 2 or 3 people, so that means that we are doing a study on a microeconomic level, right? So that is what microeconomic is. And then when we come to macroeconomics, it basically means that when we look at this at a level of an economy, right? So if we look at, like, let's say you are let's say there are 100 people in an economy, right? So there are 100 people, and you look at the demand and what they want to buy, what they want to sell, how much they want to keep, how much they want to spend, of all those 100 people combined. So that would mean that we are doing a study based on a macroeconomic level. All right, so I hope you understand both of these concepts now. Let's come to the differences between them, right? So as I said, microeconomic means economic relations or problems at a consumer slash producer level, right? So you look at one person or one producer, right? How much one producer is producing, or how much one person is consuming, or let's say spending, etc. When you look at macroeconomics, it means that it refers to economic problems or relations at the level of the economy as a whole, right? Microeconomics is also sometimes referred to as the theory of price, because we generally try to determine, like, the price of a good which we try to determine is based on microeconomic studies. That is why it is also referred to as theory of price. And microeconomics is sometimes referred to as theories of employment and income, because we generally try to determine the GDP, or GDP per capita. You might have heard about these terms. So these are basically related to income and employment, right? So that is why, because these like, you can't look at income of one person, right? You have to look at income of the whole country, of the whole economy, right? The people in that whole economy, as well as the employment. So that is why it is also referred, macroeconomics is also referred to as the theory of income and employment. When we do a microeconomic study, we assume that macro variables are constant. Now what could be macro variables? Macro variables could be, let's say there is inflation, right? There's a term called inflation. You might have heard about this. We'll be talking about all these terms later. But let's say there's inflation. Inflation basically means when the prices go up. In short, when the prices go up, right? So we assume that there is no inflation when we do a microeconomic study. So because inflation is a macro variable. Alright. Then when we look at macroeconomic studies, we assume that micro variables are constant. So we assume that the total demand is constant, right? Every person is has 10 demand, let's say 10 quantity, and 10, if we have total of 10 people in the economy, so 10 people will have, like, a total of 10 people will have 100 demand, right? So that will be constant. And so basically what I was trying to tell you here is that in microeconomics we assume that macro variables are constant, and similarly the opposite happens when you look at a macroeconomic study. That means that the micro variables are constant. Now at last, we in microeconomics we studied the relationship of different variables with the market forces. Now what is market forces? Market forces mean demand and supply. So if we study about anything, or if we research about anything, or if we try to establish a relationship between anything, we will make that relationship on the basis of demand and supply. And for macroeconomics, we study the relationship of different variables with the government policies, fiscal and monetary policies. So in microeconomics, you establish relationships based on demand and supply. In macroeconomics, you establish relationships based on fiscal and monetary policies. Okay. Okay, so I hope you understood all these concepts which I talked about in this video. You can ask me any questions which you have in the comment section down below, and I'll be ready to answer all of your questions. Thank you so much.